From 2017 through 2021, Bitcoin repeated a story people always forget. It can rise high enough to make you believe it is immortal, then fall hard enough to make you believe it is dead. It pulled Daniel Cooper in California near a peak and left him with a crack in confidence. It helped Sarah Thompson in Florida win in a sustainable way because of discipline, not luck. It pushed Michael Reyes in Illinois into selling out of fear and then standing outside while a new high appeared. And the biggest lesson is not about how smart you are. It is about how well you control your emotions while the market swings. If you made it this far, you can see Bitcoin is not just a chart. It is a constant psychological test where every cycle strips away greed, fear, belief, and patience. Crypto Explained is here to keep telling these rise and fall stories the way real people live them, not the way hype sells them. And if you want me to keep telling these kinds of true-feeling crypto journeys for the next coins in this series, please subscribe to Cryptocurrency Academy, hit like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. Today, Cryptocurrency Academy will tell you the history of Bitcoin in a different way, not just as technology milestones, but as emotional milestones. Those emotions come from something very real: price. Because when price goes up or down, people change. Trust changes, decisions change, and those decisions are what create the rises and falls. If you have ever wondered why Bitcoin can make people feel euphoric and then suddenly shattered, the answer is not a dry definition. It lives in a chain of moments where price turns people into the best or the worst version of themselves. And in this story, we will go from the moment Bitcoin was only an idea born in crisis to the moment it created its first bubble and then dragged people into its first shock. This is Crypto Explained, told through the human side of the chart. In 2008, while the world was still dizzy from the financial crisis, a technical paper appeared online on October 31, 2008, describing a peer-to-peer electronic cash system that did not need banks as middlemen. The author signed it Satoshi Nakamoto. From that moment, Bitcoin did not begin as a business deal. It began as a reaction to an era when people were losing faith in institutions. And what is interesting is that back then, almost nobody cared except a very small group. There was no stage, no mainstream media spotlight, no slogans like "to the moon." Only a strange idea: could money be created without permission, without anyone's guarantee, relying only on mathematics and a distributed network? Crypto Explained starts here because this is the real origin point. Then, only a few months later, the network launched. On January 3, 2009, the first Bitcoin block was created. What matters is that inside that first block was a message carrying the breath of that era of bank bailouts, like a reminder that Bitcoin was born while trust in the old system was cracking. This detail is crucial because it says Bitcoin was not created to please anyone, but to keep existing even when the old system disappoints people. But back then, do not assume it was already an asset. It was almost just an experiment. Nobody thought it would end up on television. Nobody thought it would become a global topic of controversy. It simply ran, block by block, quietly, like a machine without emotions. Crypto Explained keeps repeating this point because the quiet beginning is what makes the later chaos so shocking. But a good idea does not automatically become value. In the early years, Bitcoin was almost only a playground experiment for people who loved cryptography and technology. If you told this story to an average person in 2009, they would look at you like you came from another planet. When something has no price yet, it creates no temptation. No temptation means no crowd. No crowd means no bubble. In this period, Bitcoin was like a seed buried in the ground. Whether it lived or died, nobody paid attention because nobody treated it like money. It existed because a small group believed in the idea and enjoyed testing it. And because of that quietness, many people later felt stunned. Revolutions sometimes begin with silence, not fireworks. Crypto Explained is not about hype. It is about how silence turns into noise. By the 2010, the first signs of a real market began to appear. For a long time, Bitcoin hovered around roughly 10 cents, Then on October 26, 2010, it moved up around 15 cents, and by the end of the year, it approached about 30 cents. These numbers sound tiny, but psychologically, they are enormous. Because the moment a price exists, people begin to imagine, what if I buy early? What if I hold long? And when humans start imagining, a market starts forming. From here, Bitcoin stepped out of the experimental lab stage and moved closer to something society could argue about. An asset you can buy, sell, watch rise, and watch fall. And the moment something can rise and fall, there will be greed and there will be fear. Crypto Explained points out that price is the doorway that invites the crowd. Now pin down one famous day in history. May 22nd, 2010. A transaction that gets repeated like a legend. 10,000 shows. Bitcoin were used to buy 2 pizzas, believed to be worth about $41 at the time. The point of the pizza story is not that later it became the most expensive pizzas in history. The point is that it proved Bitcoin could be exchanged for something real in everyday life. That moment was like a child standing up for the first time. It did not walk far, but people suddenly realized it could walk. And once something can be exchanged in the real world, it touches human psychology. If today it can buy pizza, tomorrow it might buy something else. And as long as people believe that, price can begin to rise. Crypto Explained treats this as the moment Bitcoin began to feel real. In 2011, what pushed Bitcoin into its teenage years was the speed of the price increase. According to yearly statistics, at the start of 2011, Bitcoin was around 29 cents, then it climbed sharply, and by June 9, 2011, it hit the peak of its first mania. On June 9, 2011, price reached as high as $33.88 during the day, and the closing price was around $30.06. This is the kind of day where you go online and see profit bragging everywhere. Regular friends start asking questions. People who do not understand the tech start talking about Bitcoin as if they have followed it forever. And when regular people start asking, it is often the signal of a frenzy. The market at that time was like a small room pumped full of oxygen, where one spark can ignite everything. And that spark was expectation. The expectation that tomorrow would be higher than today. Crypto Explained lives for this moment, because this is where psychology takes over. This is where our illustration story begins, with a character who is fictional but psychologically real. Let's call him Jason Miller, a 27-year-old office worker living in the United States, not a tech person. Jason heard about Bitcoin from a friend in his gaming group. At first, Jason laughed and thought it was imaginary money. But then he saw the price rising fast, read a little more every day, and the more he read, the more he felt he was about to miss a life-changing opportunity. Jason did not think he was stepping into a market with extreme volatility. Jason simply thought he had to get on the train at the right time. He convinced himself that if he moved slowly, someone else would get rich first. And that fear of missing out is exactly what pushes many people into the most dangerous timing. Crypto Explained highlights that the trap is rarely technical, it is emotional. On June 9, 2011, Jason decided to buy. He chose to buy right when the market was hot because he believed tomorrow would be even higher. Jason bought 50 Bitcoin at the closing price around $30.06 per Bitcoin. The total Jason spent was about $1,503. At that time, $1,503 was enough to make Jason feel like he was doing something big, but not so large that he would be destroyed if he was wrong. That is why so many people jump in. They believe the risk is controlled, when in reality, they do not understand what Bitcoin volatility truly is. In the first 2 weeks, Jason lived in a state of excitement. Every time he opened his laptop, his heart beat faster. If price ticked up, he felt smart. If price dipped, he told himself it was just a normal shakeout. Crypto Explained is showing you the mindset right before reality hits. But then the real fall arrived, the kind of fall that gives you no time to prepare psychologically. The market turned. Sellers outnumbered buyers, and fear spread faster than price. By late November 2011, Bitcoin reached a level many people had sworn was impossible. On November 24, 2011, the closing price was around $2.41. Compared to the $30.06 Jason bought at, that was a drop of about 92%. With 50 Bitcoin, Jason's money evaporated from about $1,503 down to about $120.5. The most painful part was not the $120. The most painful part was the feeling of being betrayed by his own expectations. Jason started losing sleep. He avoided talking to the friends who introduced him. He called himself stupid. And he did exactly what many people do. He sold out of fear, just to end the emotional torture. Crypto Explained emphasizes this because crashes are as much about the mind as the market. Jason sold all 50 Bitcoin on November 24, 2011, around $2.41. A decision that feels logical emotionally, but makes the loss real. This is the rawest lesson of markets. You do not lose only because price drops. You lose because emotions force you to end the story at the worst point. And after selling, Jason did not feel relief. He felt empty. Because deep down, he still could not tell whether he had escaped a disaster or abandoned an opportunity. What makes this story even more painful is that Bitcoin did not die. It recovered meaningfully afterward, and 2011 ended around $4.58. But Jason was not there to see it. He left the market carrying a wrong conclusion. Bitcoin was just a scam bubble, and many people out there formed the same conclusion because they only saw those who entered at the wrong time and exited at the wrong time. Crypto Explained is not judging Jason. Crypto Explained is showing how the crowd thinks when it gets burned. In 2012, Bitcoin entered a phase that outsiders might call quiet, but was actually a phase of accumulating trust. The price at the start of 2012 was around $5, and by the end of the year, it moved up into the $13 range. There was a major milestone. On November 28, 2012, the first halving happened, cutting the block reward from 50 down to 25 Bitcoin, and on that same day, Bitcoin closed around $12.38. By December 31, 2012, Bitcoin closed around $13.53. You can see this as the moment the market began to understand that Bitcoin has its own rules. Rules programmed in advance. Rules that cannot be changed just because someone wants more supply. If you went back to Jason at the end of 2012, you would see a very human kind of regret. He remembers that he once held 50 Bitcoin. He looks at $13 and calculates in his head, what if I had not sold at 2.41? But life has no rewind button, and the deepest lesson is this. The market does not only take your money, it can take your confidence. It makes you doubt yourself, and when you doubt yourself, you miss the recovery phases that come next. The journey from 2008 to 2012 is not a fairy tale about a great invention being instantly welcomed. It is the story of an idea born in crisis, growing up in doubt, and testing human beings with a brutal first boom and bust cycle. And this is only the beginning. Crypto Explained will continue because the next storms get bigger. After December 31, 2012, when Bitcoin closed the year around $13.53, the feeling in the air was strange. The believers started to sense they were holding something with its own set of rules. The skeptics still thought it was just an experiment that would eventually fade out. But the market does not stand still while people decide what to believe. Only a few months later, Bitcoin began accelerating in a way that forced even the loudest critics to look again. And one thing became almost guaranteed. Once the price starts moving, the story stops being about technology and becomes about people. Who gets in? Who gets out? Who wakes up in time? Who gets swept away? Crypto Explained is going to tell this stretch through a few fictional characters in different US states, so you can clearly see the same price wave producing completely different decisions and completely different outcomes. In early 2013, Bitcoin left the zone where everyone thinks it's cheap and entered the zone where everyone starts paying attention. This is where Marcus Hill shows up. living in Arizona. Marcus is an IT technician, not the type dreaming of a fast escape from real life, but he has a habit of testing new things. On February 15, 2013, Marcus bought 10 Bitcoin at about $25 per Bitcoin, around $250 total. He bought with a light mindset, like trying a new app, not like gambling his future. But the market moved so quickly that even calm people started feeling the pull. By April 9, 2013, Bitcoin climbed to around $230. Marcus looked at his balance and saw his $250 turning into about $2,300. And right there, his mind lit up with the most dangerous question. If it already did this, what else can it do? Crypto Explained is watching how one number can start rewiring a person's brain. Marcus did not sell, not because he had some perfectly written long-term strategy, but because he felt like he was inside an elevator going up, and he didn't want to step out mid-floor. He started imagining bigger numbers, and when people start imagining, they often lose the ability to lock in a good result. Then the market turned hard. The emotional flip from excitement to panic happened in days. Around mid-April of 2013, Bitcoin dropped sharply into roughly the range of $70 to $100. Marcus panicked. He refreshed nonstop, read rumors nonstop, and blamed himself nonstop for not taking profit near $200. On April 16, 2013, Marcus sold 10 Bitcoin at about $90, getting roughly $900 back. On paper, he still made money compared to $250, but psychologically, Marcus felt like he had lost $1,400 that should have been his. That's a very specific kind of pain. The pain of missing a peak you will never touch again with the emotions you felt in that moment. Crypto Explained wants you to notice how profit can still feel like defeat. After the April 2013 drop, a lot of people concluded Bitcoin was finished. But Bitcoin proved something that made people angry. It didn't die the way they wanted it to. It recovered, it kept growing, and by late 2013, the atmosphere became much hotter than the early year frenzy. This time, the media talked more. Newcomers poured in faster, and life-changing stories spread everywhere. Emily Carter appears in Texas, working in sales. Emily didn't buy because she understood blockchain. Emily bought because a friend told her, "This is a once-in-a-century opportunity." On November 18, 2013, Emily bought 1 Bitcoin at around $650. In a short time, the price pushed up to $700, then $800, then $900. And Emily began looking at her current life like something she was about to outgrow. She stopped thinking, "I'm buying to test." She started thinking, "I'm buying to change my life." Crypto Explained is showing you how fast a dream can form when the chart goes vertical. By the end of November of 2013, Bitcoin touched price levels that used to sound like a campfire story. Some days it ran near $1,000, and at times it even pushed past that line. Emily felt like she was right, and feeling right can be addictive. She bragged to friends, checked her app constantly, and started believing the market would never turn back. On December 4, 2013, Emily decided to buy 1 more Bitcoin at around $1,050 because she was scared of missing the train. That put her total at about $1,700 for 2 Bitcoin. But when something goes vertical, it often rises by burning fuel made of expectation. When expectation runs out, it falls. And then the drop began. Emily watched the price slide to $900, then $800. At first, she told herself it was just a shakeout, but the shakeout didn't stop at a level the human mind can comfortably handle. Crypto Explained is calling out the moment hope starts turning into denial. In 2014, the story began shifting into something many people had underestimated: exchanges and dependence on middlemen. Emily kept her Bitcoin on an exchange because she thought it was safe and convenient, like a bank. She did not yet understand self-custody or private keys. And right then, an exchange that had been huge in that era spiraled into a severe crisis, triggering panic across the entire market. On February 7, 2014, Bitcoin was around $750, but the emotional color had already changed. By February 25, 2014, as news of halted withdrawals and internal chaos spread, the price fell into roughly the range of $500 to $600. Emily wasn't only afraid of being down money. She was afraid of being trapped, and the fear of not being able to access your funds is usually stronger than the fear of the prices dropping, because it hits the deepest feeling: total loss of control. Crypto Explained is making it clear that convenience can turn into danger overnight. Emily tried to log in, tried to withdraw, and the helplessness grew with every failed attempt. This is the kind of lesson you don't learn from a textbook. You can believe in Bitcoin and still lose everything if you place your trust in the wrong place. Bitcoin does not have a bank hotline you can call to file a complaint. It does not have a customer service department that can reverse a mistake. If the middleman collapses, you can get stuck. By April of 2014, Bitcoin moved down toward about $450, and the overall mood turned gloomy. Emily looked at her 2 Bitcoin, thought about the roughly $1,700 she put in, and saw the market value falling to under $1,000, while she still wasn't sure she could withdraw at all. The dreams of $10,000 disappeared. She only wanted safety. And this shock pushed many people out of Bitcoin with a bitter conclusion. Even though the root cause often sat in the businesses and human failures around Bitcoin, not inside the network itself. Crypto Explained is making that distinction very clearly. Daniel Brooks appears in New York. Daniel is the type who likes short-term trading, the adrenaline of quick hits. He looked at Bitcoin's volatility and thought it was a goldmine for a fast trader. But Daniel stepped in right when the market had already started cracking and confidence was already bleeding out. On June 10, 2014, Daniel bought 3 Bitcoin at about $650 each, around $1,950 total, with a very clear plan. If it hits $800, he sells. The problem is the market does not care about Daniel's plan. It does not care what you want. It only reflects supply, demand, and crowd psychology. The price never reached $800. It kept sliding. The longer Daniel waited, the more irritated he got. The more irritated he got, the more stubborn he became. And the more stubborn he became, the harder it was to cut the loss. Crypto Explained is showing how a simple plan can break the moment emotions take the wheel. By January 14, 2015, Bitcoin dropped toward about $200. This was the moment Daniel stopped looking at the chart with hope and started looking at it with exhaustion. He sold 3 Bitcoin around $200, getting about $600 back. From $1,950 down to $600 is real pain. And it often leaves a predictable scar. People begin to hate the thing that made them lose. Daniel walked away from Bitcoin and told friends it was just a dangerous game. But Daniel did not see something important. When the market looks its worst, another group of people is often the calmest, and they start accumulating when nobody even wants to look. Crypto Explained wants you to notice that the bottom is usually invisible to the people who have already given up. Sophia Nguyen appears in Washington. Sophia is a designer, not a finance person. She started paying attention to Bitcoin at the exact moment everyone else was tired and disgusted. Sophia saw something that feels backward, but is very real. When everyone hates it, it's usually cheap. When everyone loves it, it's usually expensive. On January 20th, 2015, Sophia bought 1 Bitcoin around $210. She didn't brag. She didn't expect instant riches. She chose a simple approach: buy a little each month, like long-term saving. In March of 2015, she bought 0.5 Bitcoin around $250. In June of 2015, she bought 0.5 Bitcoin around $240. She did it steadily, without staring at charts every day. What changed inside Sophia first wasn't money. It was psychology. She learned to live with volatility through discipline. And discipline is exactly what most people don't have when they enter Bitcoin driven by pure emotion. Crypto Explained is highlighting that discipline can outperform excitement. In 2015, Bitcoin didn't create a giant frenzy. It felt like a quiet stretch after a storm, where people cleaned up and rebuilt the things that had cost the community so much. Infrastructure improved, larger exchanges emerged, wallets became easier to use, and users began maturing around security. Sophia also changed how she held her assets. She learned self-custody, learned how to write down and protect a seed phrase, and learned to prioritize safety before profit. By November 3, 2015, Bitcoin climbed into roughly the $400 range. Sophia looked back and realized she didn't need to catch the top. She only needed to stay in the game long enough. That sounds simple, but in reality, it is the hardest part, because staying in the game means refusing to let emotions drag you out at the exact moment the market looks the worst. Crypto Explained is reminding you that survival often beats brilliance. In 2016, Bitcoin's recovery became clearer, and one major event happened exactly on schedule: the halving. On July 9, 2016, the halving occurred, with Bitcoin around the $650 area. Sophia didn't rush in out of excitement. She treated it as a rules milestone. New supply decreased, and the market would adjust over time. Then the price swung up and down, with days that confused newcomers again, and days that reignited old excitement. By the end of 2016, Bitcoin climbed toward around $900. And looking back, you can see the same market producing completely different results. Marcus in Arizona made money, but stayed haunted by the peak he missed. Emily in Texas learned a brutal lesson about middlemen and what it feels like to lose control. Daniel in New York lost because he believed the market had to follow his plan, and Sophia in Washington won in the most important way. She kept discipline and stayed long enough. Crypto Explained ends this stretch on a reality that the people who quit never get to witness. Bitcoin can scare you, Bitcoin can hurt you, but it also has a habit of coming back stronger after the world declares it dead. After the stormy years from 2013 through 2016, Bitcoin stepped into 2017 like something that had survived, matured, and could no longer be ignored. This was the moment the story stopped living only inside a small community. News spread outside, newcomers flooded in, and with them came a very dangerous emotion: the feeling that everyone is making money except you. Markets have a psychological loop that repeats. When things start rising fast, people stop asking why. They only ask where to buy. And Bitcoin in 2017 became a machine that produced that exact feeling day after day, headline after headline, story after story of people bragging about profits. But that same success laid the trap. When everyone believes it can only go up, the fall often arrives faster than belief can wake up. Crypto Explained is not just telling a price story here. Crypto Explained is telling a human story about what happens when speed turns into certainty. Let's begin with a new character named Daniel Cooper, living in California. Daniel is not a finance person. He works in marketing, he lives online, he reads hot headlines, and he is heavily influenced by crowd momentum. Daniel started paying attention to Bitcoin in the summer of 2017 because he saw friends posting profit screenshots nonstop. He told himself he would only put in a reasonable amount, but the truth is, his real motivation was to get in fast before it was too late. On September 1st, 2017, Daniel bought one Bitcoin around $4,700. He watched the price creep upward week after week, and what began as just trying something turned into, I am in the right place at the right time. When price rises, people rarely stop to ask what happens if it drops. Instead, they start calculating what car they will buy, what trip they will take, how their life will change. Crypto Explained keeps its eyes on this moment because this is where imagination quietly becomes risk. 2017 was the year Bitcoin kept breaking psychological levels. Every time it broke one level, it pulled in another wave of new people. Daniel began regretting that he had only bought one Bitcoin. And when you regret buying too little, people often do something extremely dangerous. They buy more at a higher price, just to reduce the feeling of missing out. On December 16, 2017, Daniel bought an additional 0.5 Bitcoin around $19,000, right near the peak of the frenzy. Daniel's total position became 1.5 Bitcoin. This is the kind of moment where you feel like you finally caught up to the story. But in reality, you are walking into the last minutes of the party. And in markets, the last minutes of the party are often when the lights are about to turn on, the music is about to stop, and the last person who enters becomes the one cleaning up the mess. Crypto Explained is showing you how FOMO turns into timing risk. Not long after, reality knocked. 2018 opened with a long slide downward. Price dropped fast, dropped repeatedly, and what scared people most was not that it dropped, but that it dropped while bad news piled up everywhere. Daniel watched his account shift from excitement into numbness. By December 15, 2018, Bitcoin fell into the area around $3,200. If you average his entries, Daniel was holding a heavy loss, especially on the 0.5 Bitcoin he bought near $19,000. The familiar question appeared in his mind, the question that haunts every newcomer: should I sell to cut the loss or hold and hope it comes back? And the answer in markets is rarely a clean right or wrong. It comes down to how much emotion you can survive. Many people sell near the bottom simply because they cannot tolerate the long, grinding feeling of being wrong. Crypto Explained is pointing at that reality because the bottom is often where pain feels endless. Daniel eventually sold that 0.5 Bitcoin on December 20th, 2018, around $3,500, just to breathe again. He kept the 1 Bitcoin he bought earlier in 2017, but his confidence was cracked. And it was cracked in a very specific way. He no longer trusted his own judgment. He began doubting every decision. He looked at charts and only felt pain. And when you look at charts and only feel pain, you often miss the recovery that follows. But the market plays a cruel game. It often returns when most people have already left, and it often rises again at the exact moment people swore they would never touch it again. Crypto Explained is not trying to make Daniel a hero or a fool. Crypto Explained is showing the cost of psychological damage. Then, 2019 arrived with a meaningful recovery, step by step. The story here was not the insane mania of 2017. It was the quiet return of belief. Another character enters, Sarah Thompson, living in Florida. Sarah is a nurse, extremely practical, not easily seduced by shiny promises. But she was drawn to one simple idea. Bitcoin has a fixed supply, and the world keeps moving into instability. On April 2nd, 2019, Sarah bought 0.2 Bitcoin when price was around $4,900. Sarah did not buy to brag. Sarah bought the way someone buys a thing they plan to understand over time. She wrote down the date, the price, and made herself a rule. If price drops, she will not panic. If price rises, she will not get drunk on it. Crypto Explained wants you to notice how boring discipline can be and how powerful it becomes later. Then, 2020 arrived with a global shock that tested everything, not just Bitcoin. In March of 2020, global financial markets panicked. Bitcoin dropped hard during that period too. This is when many people declared Bitcoin was not digital gold, because in a panic, everything gets sold. But that shock also created a turning point. Monetary policy loosened aggressively. The hunger for alternative assets grew, and the scarcity story of Bitcoin started getting repeated louder again. On March 13, 2020, Bitcoin reached the area around $5,000. Sarah watched the drop and did the opposite of the crowd. On March 16, 2020, she bought another 0.2 Bitcoin around $5,200. She did not know if this was the bottom. She only knew she was buying while fear was in control. Crypto Explained highlights this because fear is the one force that can make smart people act stupid and disciplined people act calm. 2020 also carried an important milestone, the halving on May 11, 2020, when block rewards fell and the supply story became even tighter. But what mattered more was that the market began entering a longer upward phase. By late 2020, Bitcoin pushed above old levels and moved into territory that used to sound like rumor. Sarah started seeing her account turn green, but she kept her rules. On December 16, 2020, Bitcoin was around $20,000, and Sarah now held about 0.4 Bitcoin with an average cost far lower than the market price. This is the kind of position where you are not forced to panic. You have the right to wait. You have the right to watch. And sometimes in markets, the greatest power is the power to do nothing. Crypto Explained says this clearly because doing nothing can be the hardest skill of all. Then 2021 arrived, and Bitcoin exploded again, but this time with far wider attention. It hit the news daily, showed up in everyday conversations, and was increasingly treated as something that could belong to the mainstream. But explosions always come with violent volatility. Another character appears to show the other side. Michael Reyes, living in Illinois. Michael works freelance. His income is uneven. And he was drawn to the idea that if he caught the right wave, he could change his life. On February 21st, 2021, Michael bought 0.1 Bitcoin, around $57,000, because he was afraid of missing out. He heard a lot of confident voices saying it would hit $100,000 soon. And when people say a huge number in a certain tone, newcomers often treat it like certainty. Crypto Explained uses Michael here because he represents a massive crowd that arrives late, not because they are stupid, but because emotion arrives on schedule. But 2021 also delivered a brutal drop. Just months after the early year peak, Bitcoin fell hard. On May 19, 2021, price moved into the area around $30,000. Michael watched his purchase lose nearly half its value. He started panicking because the money he put in was not fully extra money. He needed to feel safe, and when people need safety, they often sell just to end the pain. On May 23, 2021, Michael sold his 0.1 Bitcoin around $35,000. He felt relief, believing he had escaped disaster. But then the market did the most irritating thing. It recovered strongly later in the year. Crypto Explained points to this moment because relief can be the most expensive emotion in a volatile market. Late 2021, Bitcoin reached a new high. On November 10, 2021, it moved into the area around $69,000. Michael looked back and saw he sold at $35,000, then looked at $69,000, and what he felt was not a technical lesson. It was a psychological lesson. He sold because of fear, and fear made him miss the recovery. Meanwhile, Sarah in Florida, with her disciplined buys at $4,900 and $5,200, watched her account grow dramatically without letting emotion drive her. She decided to take a small piece off the table so that her win would become real, not just a number on a screen. On November 12, 2021, Sarah sold 0.1 Bitcoin around $64,000. She did not sell everything. She only sold a portion to turn part of the profit into practical meaning. That is how mature people often act. Not extreme, not all in, not all out. Crypto Explained highlights this because survival is not about being right once. It is about staying sane across cycles.